This is a story about a real adventure. It's a tough one, and it shows you how quickly nature can turn against you. Back in 1959, in the cold heart of Russia, a group of 10 young adventurers set out on a journey. They were all students or graduates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, and they were tough. 9 of them would make the final trek. Their leader was a young man named Igor Dyatlov. He was an experienced hiker and knew what he was doing. They were all skilled in long-distance ski trips and mountain expeditions. Their mission was to reach a mountain named Otorten deep in the Ural Mountains. This was no walk in the park. It was a Category 3 expedition, the highest difficulty rating for that time. They were prepared for the worst. Their journey began in the middle of winter. The landscape was brutal, endless snow, biting winds, and freezing temperatures. For these young men and women, it was the ultimate test of their skills and endurance. They were excited for the challenge ahead, documenting their trip with cameras and keeping detailed diaries. We know from their photos that they were in good spirits. They were laughing, working together, and pushing through the deep snow. One of the hikers, Yuri Yudin, had to turn back early because of illness. He said goodbye to his friends, never knowing he would be the only one to survive. The remaining 9 pressed on, deeper into the unforgiving wilderness, towards the mountain they called Kholat Syakhl, or Dead Mountain. The plan was straightforward but demanding. They would ski across the frozen landscape, camp in the harsh conditions, and conquer the peak. Everything seemed to be going according to schedule. The entries in their journals described the daily struggles and triumphs of their expedition. They wrote about the beautiful, desolate scenery and the camaraderie that kept them warm in the bitter cold. They were a team, relying on each other for survival in one of the planet's most hostile environments. They were strong, smart, and well-equipped for what they thought they would face. But something was waiting for them on the slopes of Dead Mountain. Something they could have never prepared for. Their last camp was pitched on the side of the mountain on the night of February 1st. This decision was a little unusual. It was on an exposed slope, rather than down in the tree line where they would have been more sheltered from the wind. Perhaps they were practicing for a tough night on the summit. They ate their dinner and settled in for the night, huddled together in their large tent. The temperature outside plunged far below zero. The world was silent, except for the howl of the wind across the vast, empty snowscape. This was the last normal night of their lives. From this point on, everything went terribly, terribly wrong, and a mystery was born that would baffle investigators for decades. Days turned into weeks, and no word came from Dyatlov's group. They were supposed to send a telegram when they finished their route, around February 12th. When nothing arrived, their families began to worry. At first, delays were expected on such a difficult trip. But as more time passed, the silence became alarming. A full-scale search and rescue operation was launched. Volunteer students, teachers, and eventually the army and aircraft were all called in to scour the massive, snow-covered region. They searched for any sign of the missing hikers, hoping to find them alive and well, perhaps stranded, but safe. The searchers faced the same brutal conditions, battling deep snow and freezing winds as they looked for their friends. On February 26th, the search team finally found a clue. From the air, a pilot spotted the group's abandoned tent on the slope of Kholat Syakhl. It was a chilling sight. The tent was badly damaged and half buried in snow, but what was truly strange was how it had been damaged. It was clear that it had been cut open from the inside. Why would anyone cut their way out of their only shelter in the middle of a freezing night? It made no sense. Inside, the searchers found all of the group's belongings left behind. Their warm clothes, their boots, their food, and their equipment were all there, neatly arranged. It was as if they had fled in a sudden panic, without stopping to grab the things they would need to survive. Outside the tent, the searchers found a trail of footprints in the snow. The footprints led away from the camp, heading down the slope towards a dense forest nearly a mile away. What was shocking was that the prints were made by people who were barefoot, or wearing only socks or a single boot. Imagine running through deep snow in sub-zero temperatures without proper footwear. It's a recipe for disaster. The footprints were orderly, not frantic, suggesting the group walked away calmly at first. They walked side by side, descending the treacherous slope in the dark. The trail of prints continued for about 500 meters before being covered by snow, pointing the searchers in the direction they needed to go. The first 2 bodies were found at the edge of the forest, under a large ancient pine tree. They were Yuri Krivonyshenko and Yuri Doroshenko. They were dressed only in their underwear. Next to them were the remains of a small fire. The branches on the pine tree above them were broken up to 5 meters high, suggesting someone had tried to climb it, perhaps to get a better view or to escape from something. A short distance away, between the tree and the tent, searchers found 3 more bodies: Igor Dyatlov, Zina Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin. They seemed to have been trying to crawl back up the hill to their tent. They were better dressed, but still inadequately for the conditions. The mystery was only getting deeper. The search for the remaining 4 hikers took more than 2 months. The spring thaw finally revealed their location. They were found buried under more than 4 meters of snow in a ravine, not far from the pine tree. These last 4, Nicholas Thibaut Brignol, Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Zolotaryov, and Alexander Kolevatov, were dressed better than the others. It appeared they had taken some clothes from their friends who had already died. This made sense in a survival situation. But what the medical examiners discovered next was truly horrifying and defied all logical explanation. These 4 hikers had suffered catastrophic internal injuries, the kind you would only expect to see from a major car crash or a massive explosion. The injuries were severe and specific. Thibaut Brignol had a crushed skull. Dubinina and Zolotaryov had multiple broken ribs, crushed with a force so immense that it could not have been caused by a human being. The doctor said the force required was like being hit by a car. Yet strangely, there were no external signs of trauma on their bodies. There were no bruises or soft tissue damage that you would expect from such a violent impact. It was as if they had been squeezed by an incredible, unseen force. To make things even more bizarre, Lyudmila Dubinina was found missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lip. The official explanation was that it was caused by natural decay in the wet environment of the ravine, but the detail added a new layer of horror to the story. The investigators were stumped. They looked at every piece of evidence. Some of the hikers' clothing was found to be radioactive. Not dangerously high, but it was another strange detail that didn't fit. Was there a military test in the area? The government denied it. Another clue came from the hikers' own cameras. The last photo on one of the cameras was a complete mystery. It was taken in the dark and seemed to show a set of strange orange orbs or lights in the night sky. Was this what made them flee their tent in terror? The photo is blurry and hard to decipher, but it adds to the unsettling feeling that something extraordinary happened that night. The official conclusion of the investigation was frustratingly vague. The final report stated that the 9 hikers died from a compelling natural force. This explanation satisfied no one. What kind of natural force cuts a tent from the inside, causes people to run barefoot into a blizzard, and inflicts massive internal injuries without leaving a single external mark? The case was closed, but the questions remained. The lack of a clear answer, combined with the terrifying and bizarre evidence, meant that the Dyatlov Pass incident was far from over. It was just the beginning of a legend that would haunt people's minds for generations to come. Over the years, people have come up with many theories to explain what happened. No single theory explains everything perfectly, which is why the mystery endures. The simplest and most scientific theory is a slab avalanche. This suggests that a sudden slide of snow crashed down on the tent. This would explain the crushing injuries and why they cut their way out in a panic. Fearing a second, larger avalanche, they ran to the relative safety of the forest. In the disorienting darkness and cold, they became separated, succumbed to hypothermia, and tried desperately to get back to their camp. This is the most logical explanation, but it doesn't explain everything, like why they walked calmly at first or the missing tongue. Another popular theory points to the military. The area was known for secret weapons testing during the Cold War. This theory suggests the hikers accidentally stumbled upon a secret test. The strange lights in the sky, the radiation on their clothes, and the powerful, concussive injuries could all be explained by some kind of weapon. Perhaps they were silenced by soldiers to protect a state secret. This theory is compelling because it accounts for the government's vague and hasty conclusion to the case. However, there is no concrete evidence of military activity in that specific area on that night, leaving this as pure speculation. It's a dark thought that they were victims not of nature but of their own government. Of course, a mystery this strange attracts more unusual theories. Some people believe the hikers were attacked by an animal, like a bear or a wolverine, but the tracks of a large animal were never found, and the nature of the injuries doesn't quite match an animal attack. Then there are the paranormal explanations. The local Mansi people have legends about spirits and a yeti or mink that haunts the mountains. Could the hikers have encountered something truly unknown to science? This theory often points to the last strange photograph, and the sheer terror that must have driven them from their tent. While it's exciting to think about, there is no physical evidence to support a paranormal encounter. Even today, more than 60 years later, the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident continues to fascinate and frighten us. It's a perfect storm of mystery, a remote location, a group of brave young people, and a set of clues that are both terrifying and contradictory. It reminds us that no matter how prepared we are, the wilderness holds powerful secrets, and there are some forces we may never understand. The case was officially reopened in 2019, and the conclusion again pointed to an avalanche, but many people remain unconvinced. The story serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes there are no easy answers, and the unknown can be the most frightening thing of all. You have to respect the wild.